Welcome to Narrative Nook Audio Tales, where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening. These spying devices, all of the latest models released just a few months ago, hinted that Carol's disappearance was far from simple. Arabella searched the living room for a while before pulling out a bottle of luminol spray. Now, the living room floor was spotted with numerous blood residues. This must have been the initial crime scene. The question remained: whose blood was it? Arabella then ascended the staircase, making her way to Carol's room. Just like the living room, it was neat and tidy, with a warm, inviting aura. Arabella sprayed the luminol, but no blood residues were found. The room was too clean, and it was as if all the valuable clues had been wiped away. After a thorough search in the room, Arabella found an old bottle labeled vitamin C, which was now empty. She brought the bottle to her nose for a sniff and realized it didn't smell like vitamin C at all. There was a powdery residue at the bottom, and upon closer inspection, it seemed to contain traces of ether bloom. Ether bloom was a potent poison with a distinct smell, but she couldn't identify the other ingredients. So, she carefully collected the powder in a small transparent bag from her purse, intending to take it back for testing. The night before, Clark had mentioned that he and Carol had been dating for a year. Yet, in Carol's room, there was no sign of Clark's existence. It was as if Clark had never been a part of her world. After another round of fruitless searching, Arabella decided to leave the house for a while. She climbed over the wall, grabbed some food, and sent her subordinates to Lidoria to track down leads. By nightfall, she was back, climbing over the wall once more. She had dismantled all the cameras and spy devices in the house during the day and was sure that someone would come to check on them. The only question was, who would it be? Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a call from Clark. After dismissing the call, she texted him, "What's up, Clark? Edith said you left early this morning, and I called Romeo, and he hasn't seen you all day either. Where are you? I'm working on something, and I'll be back soon. Are you investigating Carol's disappearance? Any new findings?" Clark quickly caught on. Instead of answering, Arabella asked, "Clark, have you ever been to Stardust Lane?" "Of course. More than once." Clark responded earnestly. He had attempted to find Carol there before, but perhaps because he was a stranger, people weren't very forthcoming with information. "I even went to Carol's house a few times. Her parents always claimed they didn't know where she was." Clark didn't buy it. "Maybe Carol found someone else, and her parents didn't want me pestering her, so they lied to me." He had tried a few times, but they insisted they had no contact with Carol. "Didn't they mention anything else?" "No. What have you found?" At Arabella's question, Clark wondered. "I'll tell you later." Arabella had just sent the message when she felt the presence of people in the yard, more than one. A smirk danced on her lips, and the fish had taken the bait. Under the moonlight, several figures quickly entered the living room from the yard. Their swift movements were nothing short of astonishing. The moment they barged into the living room, a nimble figure swiftly emerged, locking everyone inside, including herself. Realizing they'd fallen into a trap, they looked up at the girl standing before them. In the dark, she wore a baseball cap and a black mask. Her slender figure blocked the doorway, and she exuded an intense aura. The man leading the group was deadly serious. "Carol? So, you finally showed yourself, you traitor." All of them were wearing black balaclavas, hiding their faces. "Today is the day you die." The leader quickly attacked, the others following suit without hesitation. One of them pulled out a switchblade, lunging towards the girl, who was now known as Arabella. She dodged and caught his wrist, then kicked directly towards his chest. Another threw a vase at Arabella, who promptly kicked it onto the sofa to prevent it from breaking and making a noise. Several men attacked Arabella at once. She kicked at one of their heads, but he swiftly dodged. Another made a quick move, and Arabella accurately kicked his fist. She had used all her strength for this kick, causing intense pain to shoot from his fist up to his shoulder. He winced and instinctively clutched his aching fist. Another man drew a small knife, aiming for Arabella's neck. She avoided his attack, then kicked him squarely in the chest. Her movements were extraordinarily swift, her actions quick and ruthless. The leader suffered a setback, and his voice was filled with anger. "You're not Carol?" Arabella quickly attacked him again. "Who are you?" Seeing that Arabella remained silent, the leader's anger surged. His vicious attacks were no match for her, and he found himself at a disadvantage. The others were injured, clearly no match for Arabella. "It's time to end this." Since she wasn't Carol, wasting time with her was no point. With a single command from the leader, everyone drew their silenced guns and aimed at Arabella. As they pulled the trigger, Arabella leaped into the air. Amid the hail of gunfire, she was agile and swift, not only dodging a dozen bullets but also grabbing one man's arm, seizing his gun, and returning fire proficiently. Her aim was deadly accurate, and 4 gun-wielding hands were hit in no time. "Who the hell are you?" Now, the leader was genuinely alarmed. The girl's agility, marksmanship, and reflexes were far superior to theirs. Continuing like this was futile. Retreat. They attempted to leave at the leader's command, but they had unknowingly inhaled a certain gas in the 7 minutes since they entered the living room. Their bodies were now weak, and their consciousness was fading. This special gas was prepared by Arabella. It produced very little smoke when ignited, making it hard to notice if one was not vigilant. It had no scent during combustion and could make a person lose consciousness in a short time. It was too late when they realized they were losing control of their bodies. The leader threw a smoke bomb, planning to escape. The living room was filled with thick smoke. Arabella heard the sound of a window breaking, and she quickly grabbed the rope she had prepared, followed the sound, and one by one, tied up the men who hadn't escaped through the window. One had already escaped into the yard and was climbing over the wall. Arabella looked in the direction he had left but didn't chase after him. She looked at the 4 men she had tied up, all of whom had passed out. At that moment, someone knocked on the door outside. "Professor Earwood, are you home? Have you returned?" The lady who ran the breakfast joint next door was knocking on the door. "Are you all right? I thought I heard the sound of breaking glass. Isn't it strange that the lights are off? Are you sure you heard something?" Her husband questioned, peering through a slit in the door. "I don't see anyone in the yard either, and it's pitch black. Do you think we should call the police? Something feels off. I'm feeling uneasy. Are you sure you heard something?" "Yes, while you were snoring away, I heard a loud crash, like glass shattering. It came from Professor Earwood's place. Let's go upstairs and have a look." They could see right into the center of Professor Earwood's yard from their rooftop terrace. "Look at all those fallen leaves. Professor Earwood is a neat freak. If he were home, he would have cleaned that up immediately. But I'm certain I heard something earlier. It could have been a sound from another house, or maybe a stray cat jumped onto a window and accidentally broke something." The husband yawned. "Let's go back to sleep. We have to get up early to make some oatmeal. I doubt the Earwoods will be back anytime soon." "How mysterious," the wife muttered, switching off the lights. When there was no more movement next door, Arabella took out her phone and messaged her team. "Get a few guys over to Stardust Lane 111. I need a hand moving some people." "Moving people?" Her team was taken aback. "ASAP." After sending the message, Arabella noticed several missed calls and unread messages from Romeo and Clark. She hadn't been able to respond during the fight. She sent them both a quick message, "Coming home." She then effortlessly removed the mini camera she had installed earlier, restoring the living room to its original state before leaving with her team. At Reflections Villa, Clark finally saw a message from Arabella. It was only 2 words, "Coming home." He tried calling her several times, but she didn't pick up. He was growing worried. What was she doing that she couldn't answer her phone? He messaged Romeo, "Has Bella contacted you?" She replied, said she was on her way home. Didn't answer my calls. I wonder what she's up to. Clark was concerned. He had a bad feeling about the evening. "Clark, I'm done changing." Serena came downstairs cheerfully. "Why haven't you changed yet?" "I'm going up now." Clark rechecked his phone, but there was still no call from Arabella. It was already 8 p.m. Where could she be? Seeing that he was preoccupied and constantly checking his phone, Serena couldn't help but ask, "Clark, is something wrong?" "No." Clark shook off his thoughts. "I'm going upstairs to change. Wait for me." "Okay." Serena watched him go upstairs, a look of delight on her face as she exchanged a knowing smile with Martha. Martha returned the gesture, giving her a thumbs up. They hadn't expected things to go so smoothly. With Arabella out of the house, Martha had encouraged Serena to invite Clark out shopping under the pretense of buying Christmas gifts for the family. This would not only show her generosity and tact but also help them bond as siblings. Plus, she could use Clark's credit card to buy herself some things. After all, Clark's money always seemed to end up with Arabella. Martha coached her that if Clark made excuses, she should playfully remind him of the time he took Arabella to the movies and shopping. Sure enough, Clark was initially uninterested in going, but Serena pouted and said, "But Clark, you went with Bella last time." Eventually, Clark gave in, promising to accompany her for a shopping spree in the evening. Clark descended the stairs after changing his clothes, and Serena happily hooked her arm through his. "Clark, I knew you're always the best to me. You're my sister. If I don't treat you well, who will one?" Clark teased, scratching her nose playfully. His cell phone buzzed as he arrived at the garage and opened the car door. Seeing Arabella's name on the caller ID, he picked up immediately. "Bella, where have you been?" As soon as he answered the call, Clark complained, "It's already 8 p.m. Do you know how worried I've been? You didn't answer my calls, replied to my numerous messages with just a word or two, and took forever to respond. Are you trying to drive me crazy? Where have you been all day?" Upon hearing this, Serena realized that Clark had been glued to his phone all day, waiting for Arabella to reply. A sour feeling crept into her heart, and a tinge of resentment and jealousy welled up within her, but she kept her emotions under wraps. "Clark, I've caught a few people who might be related to Carol's disappearance." Arabella, always a woman of few words, spoke while driving. "They're with me now, but I'd rather keep my location a secret, so don't spread the word. I'm coming to pick you up at the Reflections Villa. Can you meet me there?" "Sure, how long will you be?" Hearing that this was related to Carol's disappearance, Clark felt his heart tighten. Was his sister out catching culprits today? What sort of people could be related to Carol's disappearance? Didn't Carol leave because she fell in love with someone else? How did it turn into a disappearance, in Arabella's words? Too many questions popped up, giving him a bad premonition. "I'll be there in about 3 minutes." "Okay, I'll wait for you by the main gate." Clark closed the car door and turned to Serena. "Serena, something came up. I'll accompany you to the mall some other time." "Clark." Serena rushed after him as he hurried away. "Clark, what happened?" "I have to go out with Bella. Stay here like a good girl, or call a friend to accompany you. Buy whatever you like, and I'll pay you back later. Be good." Clark patted her on the head and quickly left. Clark. Serena was extremely upset. Why could Arabella summon Clark away with a single call? Arabella must have done it on purpose. She chose to call precisely when Clark was about to accompany her shopping. Clark was too much. He had promised to accompany her shopping, but he stood her up to go out with Arabella. In the distance, Serena saw Arabella's car parked outside the villa. Clark quickly got in, and the car soon disappeared. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. Upon returning to the living room of the main building, she saw Edith arranging a bouquet of flowers. The several servants around were complimenting her on her arrangement. Looking at the flowers in front of her, Edith smiled. "I hope these flowers can bring Miss Bella some joy. I'll put them in her room." Martha rolled her eyes and turned to see Serena storming back. She couldn't help but feel puzzled. Hadn't Serena gone shopping with Clark? Why did she return alone? Edith's smile and the flowers in her hand fully pricked Serena's heart. She blocked Edith's way. "Was it you? Did you tell Bella that Clark was going shopping with me?" "Miss Serena?" Edith held a vase, perplexed. "I'm not sure what you're talking about." "You must have tipped her off. That's why she suddenly called and whisked Clark away," Serena fumed. Everyone in this house knows you're her lapdog. Serena, looking after Ms. Bella was a task assigned to me by the lady of the house. I'm just doing my job. How have I become a lapdog in your eyes, unworthy even of being a human? I wasn't aware of Clark's sudden change of plans, and I believe it has nothing to do with Ms. Bella. It's just a coincidence. You're still arguing. That damn servant. Not only was she defending herself, but she was also defending Arabella. What had Arabella done to bewitch her? Clark was about to get into the car, and then that conveniently timed call came through, and he left? There were plenty of other times throughout the day to call. Why that exact moment? Edith felt wronged. You should be asking Clark, and he's the one involved. I don't know anything. You're blaming the wrong person. What, now you're using Clark to pressure me? Serena looked at Edith and the few trembling servants behind her. She couldn't help but sneer. That's right, you all think you're something special now, climbing up Bella's big tree, not giving a damn about anyone else. Serena, I've never thought that way. Whether in the eyes of the master and mistress or us servants, you're always the lady of this house. Who among you has ever treated me like a real lady? Serena was so furious she knocked the vase out of Edith's hands. The vase fell to the floor, shattering with a crisp sound. The junior maids were frightened and hid behind Edith, not daring to look up. Edith was startled and thought Serena was being unreasonable today and too much. What was she doing knocking over her flowers? They were intended for Miss Bella. The last time she had a cold for several days, feeling miserable all over, Miss Bella gave her a few pills, and she was better in no time. That's why she splurged today, buying a bouquet for Miss Bella to express her gratitude, but it ended up being knocked to the floor by Serena. Serena, calm down. At this moment, Martha stepped forward and pulled Serena aside. Some people are short-sighted, thinking they can enjoy the shade by clinging to a big tree. Don't let it get to you. Who knows who will have the last laugh? After speaking, she glared at Edith. We'll see. So that's why Serena's personality has changed so drastically. It's all because of your instigation. Edith glared at Martha. Most people guide their children on the right path. Only you are leading Serena astray. You're only going to ruin her. It was you who bullied Serena first, and I haven't even mentioned that. You must have tipped off Miss Bella to call Clark and lure him away. You're so cunning, so good at playing your games. You can't even guide Miss Bella on the right path, yet you have the audacity to criticize my parenting? Where do you get off? Are you out of your mind? Clark probably stood Serena up because he had something more important to handle. Oh, so you're saying that going out with Miss Bella is more important than going out with Serena? In the end, Miss Bella is the most important in this house, is that it? Tonight, Kenneth and Louisa had gone to a dinner party and weren't home, so Martha's aggression was unchecked. The servants had never seen such a situation and were scared out of their wits. You're completely unreasonable. It was like a scholar meeting a soldier, unable to reason with her. Indeed, Bella has the Collins family blood coursing through her veins, but don't get too excited yet. For the past 18 years, the true apple of the lady's eye has been Serena, and the one cherished by her 5 brothers is also Serena. The depth of their affection for her over these years is beyond words. You all know that deep down. Martha, supporting Serena, spoke with words that were like a knife to their hearts. With such profound affection, Serena has more than enough power to kick you all out of here. If you dare to plot against her behind her back, none of you will be able to stay in this family. Whether we can stay or not isn't up to you alone, said Edith, looking at Serena with disappointment. Serena, over the years, I've watched you grow up. I know you're not inherently bad. At 18, you need to understand right from wrong. Don't let your future be swayed by those with malicious intentions. With that, Edith bent down to pick up the flowers from the ground. She had spent $30 on these flowers, and now they were desecrated and trampled on. She couldn't possibly give them to Bella now. It was really a pity. These beautiful flowers could have brightened Bella's day, but instead, they were ruined by these two. Clean up the mess, Edith instructed the maids as she exited, holding the damaged flowers. To her surprise, This action provoked Martha. "Oh, look at you, ordering people around. You're just a servant, but you're acting as if you run the place. You think you're something special just because you're clinging to Bella? Stop putting on airs in front of us." Edith did not want to waste her words on Martha, as it would be like arguing with the stubborn. There was no reasoning with her. She placed her hope on Serena. "Miss Serena, it's Miss Bella approved that you were allowed to stay in this family. If she had any resentment towards you, she could have made use of her parents' guilt and had you leave right from the start, but she didn't." Edith spoke from her conscience. "When your parents and your brothers were being kind to you, Bella didn't interfere, she didn't sabotage you, she didn't speak ill of you in front of them." Edith continued, "Bella has been busy all day. Maybe she encountered some tricky issues and needed Clark's help. They're both doctors, right? If it's a matter of life and death, it's only reasonable that Clark would drop his shopping to help. Bella is straightforward. She says what's on her mind, she doesn't beat around the bush." Seeing Serena silent, Edith felt she had taken some of it in, so she added, "Think about it." After Edith left, the maids began cleaning up the mess in silence. "What's with the slow pace? Are you here to slack off?" Martha couldn't help but reprimand. "In the lady's heart, Serena is the most important one. You short-sighted fools, you'll get what's coming for you." One of the maids couldn't help but say, "Martha, we were all watching Edith arrange the flowers just now. She didn't use her cell phone to contact Bella, and you misunderstood her. You're still defending her? It seems like you really want to leave." The maids were scared out of their wits and quickly cleaned up and left. Those blind fools. I need to teach them a lesson someday, or they'll forget who's in charge in this house. Martha angrily led Serena upstairs, muttering all the way, "That old hag Edith trying to mislead you, smear me in front of you, tell you to distinguish right from wrong, bah, isn't she just saying I'm the bad guy? She's the one giving Bella advice, yet she still plays the good guy." Serena gently patted Martha's hand, saying, "Don't worry, I can see clearly. It's just that I don't know if Clark had an emergency. If it's really as serious as Edith mentioned, a matter of life and death, then I might have misunderstood Clark and Arabella." "Serena? How did she manage to brainwash you? It's already this late. What could be so urgent that it required Clark to leave? Okay, let's say it's a matter of life and death. Clark could still have explained it to you. But he didn't even consider your feelings and left you behind to follow Miss Bella. Isn't that a little inappropriate? Clark said he would go shopping with me another day. He also told me to go first and find some friends to accompany me, to buy more of what I like, and then ask him for reimbursement." Upon hearing this, Martha scoffed. "Clark really does play favorites. He gave his unlimited black card to Miss Bella, letting her buy whatever she wanted. But when it comes to you, you can only buy things and then ask him for reimbursement. If you buy a lot, it'll be awkward to ask him for reimbursement, right?" Serena's gaze dimmed. Yes, when she heard Clark say these words, there was a sudden chill in her heart. She used to think Clark was the fairest, but lately, she began to feel that Clark was biased, just like Hans Chossel, as if Arabella was the only one in his heart. "Serena, I'll go shopping with you. Since Clark has already said so, let's buy more. Having some things as our own is better than being penniless in the future." Martha persuaded, "Wait for me a moment. I'm going to change my clothes." "But Martha, it's already 8:30. The mall closed at 10:30. We'll buy as much as we can. Just pick the expensive ones. Don't worry about whether you like them or not." Under Martha's arrangement, Serena's originally unbalanced heart was completely shaken. In the end, she went to the mall with Martha to go on a shopping spree. Both of them let loose and bought without even looking at the price tags. Meanwhile, Arabella parked her car in front of Villa Cascada. The armed guard at the gate saw the boss getting out of the car with a handsome man and was somewhat puzzled. "Boss, who is this?" Jack noticed the commotion and immediately came over, slapping the back of his head. "Why are you asking? This is Clark. Put away your weapon now." The guard at the gate quickly put away his gun, calling out, somewhat bewildered, "Clark." Clark gazed at the grandiose mansion in front of him. Just the entrance lawn alone was several thousand square meters. What was key was that many people were patrolling back and forth with weapons. The brightly lit mansion looked mysterious, like some sacred palace that did not allow strangers to enter. Clark didn't know why Jack knew his identity or why he called his sister boss. No wonder his sister said on the phone that she would take him to a place, but she didn't want anyone to know about this place and asked him not to publicize it. With so many people holding weapons, it certainly couldn't be publicized. "Bella, what is this place?" Clark asked the girl beside him. "This is one of our boss's main bases. There are many laboratories inside, equipped with the most advanced equipment and instruments from home and abroad. Many of our boss's world-renowned medical experiments are completed here. Like that SIR virus epidemic in Antarctica last time, the antidote was researched here by our boss." Arabella glanced at Jack, who immediately clamped his mouth shut. Was Bella the one who developed the cure for the SIR virus in Antarctica? Now, it was Clark's turn to be shocked. That virus had been rampant in Antarctica, causing countless deaths, with even a few cases popping up back home. Clark had paid attention to the news back then, impressed by the brilliance of Professor Arabella, as no one else in the world had been able to come up with a solution. "You're not the Professor Arabella from Summerfield College, were you?" Clark asked, looking at the girl next to him in disbelief. "Yep, that's our boss. She completed all her studies at Summerfield College 2 years ago. Even the professors who taught her felt inferior, humbly accepting their role as her students. She's now a distinguished professor at Summerfield College, one of the 66 influential figures since the college's founding. That's our boss." Arabella glanced at Jack again. "That's enough from you." Jack clamped his mouth shut immediately, his eyes signaling he wouldn't say any more. "Why did you stay at Westerly College then?" Clark asked, walking alongside her. "That's because President Barton of Westerly College needed our boss's cooperation in conducting some experiments." Jack began but quickly covered his mouth, once again using his sincere gaze to signal he wouldn't say any more. Arabella was speechless. Clark was surprised to discover his sister had so many different identities. Her headquarters, like her, was shrouded in mystery. As Arabella led him into the side building, the 2 guards standing watch respectfully greeted her, "Boss." Arabella nodded slightly. Why were there so many armed guards if they were here only for experiments? Who were these people? "Bella, who are these?" "Guardians of the building," Jack answered vaguely. Arabella led Clark into the side building and down to the basement. There were several empty rooms, the walls made of iron bars, making them look like giant cages. The cages were empty, exuding a chilly aura. As they walked past, their footsteps echoed in the air. Sensor lights flickered on one by one, casting an eerie glow. In the last cell were 4 individuals they had captured today. They were still unconscious, huddled together in a heap. "They're the ones connected to Carol's disappearance?" Clark asked, his heart pounding. "Yes." As soon as Arabella finished speaking, someone brought over 2 chairs. She sat down and lightly said, "Clark, sit." After Clark sat down, Arabella directed one of her subordinates, "Wake them up." "Yes." Jack pressed a switch on the wall. Immediately, icy water cascaded from the ceiling of the cage like a heavy downpour. Meanwhile, a transparent partition rose up from the floor, effectively shielding them from the splashing water droplets. Arabella and Clark remained dry, with not a single drop of water on them. The 4 men in the cage were soaked to the bone, shocked awake by the bone-chilling cold. They realized they had not only been tied together, but their hoods had also been removed. The partition retracted into the floor, and Clark, unable to contain himself any longer, asked, "Who are you people? Why did you call Carol a traitor? Where is Carol?" Earlier in the car, his sister had briefly explained the situation to him. He had a feeling Carol's disappearance was not straightforward. "What do you know? Tell me." Any mention of Carol made Clark lose his usual composure. One of the subordinates entered the cage and removed the gag from one of the men. Seeing that the man was about to bite his tongue off, the subordinate quickly stuffed the gag back in, giving him a few hard punches. "Playing dirty with me? Boss, I suggest stripping them down to check for any gang tattoos or the like." "Strip them?" The eyes of the four men widened in horror. A soldier may be killed but not insulted. Being stripped naked and exposed to each other was worse than enduring torture. Go ahead. Arabella stood up, her hand resting on Clark's shoulder. I'll step out for a bit. Feel free to ask them anything you want to know. After Arabella left the basement, her phone vibrated again. It was a call from Romeo. Lost in her own world, Arabella barely noticed the call. With a swipe across the screen, Romeo's voice echoed from the other end. Bella, you're still not home? It was already 9 in the evening. Almost there. What have you been up to all day? Just dealing with stuff, Arabella replied softly. Just went out with Clark. What were you and Clark doing? Arabella couldn't exactly tell him that they had been out rounding up a few guys related to Clark's missing girlfriend. If Romeo knew she'd been risking her neck, facing off with a handful of armed thugs, he'd definitely be mad. We just hung out. So, what kept you busy all day? Not picking up calls, only replying to 1 or 2 messages. I had a small task to complete. Helping Clark find his girlfriend could be considered a task, right? Was it dangerous? Not at all. It was easy. Arabella added, just took up some time. Indeed, it took up time. She'd vanished for an entire day. He would have sent someone to look for her if it wasn't for her message. Did you finish it? Romeo asked, concern in his voice. Yep, it's done. They were just waiting for those guys to confess, then they'd have a lead. Are you hungry? Did you have dinner? Only at his question did Arabella remember that she hadn't eaten dinner. She had been staking out at Carol's house for quite a long time to catch those guys. To keep Romeo from worrying, Arabella lied, I've eaten. I'll send over some late-night snacks for you, Clark, and your parents. What do you feel like? Barbecue? Pastries? Or? I'm not hungry, and I don't want anything. Arabella wasn't sure how much longer she would be occupied. To save him the trouble of waiting, she said, I'll just take a shower and head to bed when I get home. You should sleep early as well. See you tomorrow. Romeo's eyes softened hearing the last 3 words. All right, see you tomorrow. He figured Bella must be tired after a day's work. It wouldn't be right to disturb her rest now. Tomorrow it was then. As long as they could meet. Get home soon, don't stay out too long. Romeo added, let me know when you get home. Okay. Glad that Romeo didn't ask too many questions, Arabella breathed a sigh of relief and hung up. A while later, Clark emerged from the side building, much to Arabella's surprise. Did they say anything? They didn't spill a word. Clark seemed a bit down. Jack stripped them down, but they don't have any gang tattoos. We can't tell who they are yet. Don't worry, Jack will figure something out. Clark gazed at the lawn in front of him, his eyes filled with desolation. Bella, where do you think Carol is now? I can't tell. It's been a year, Clark lamented. I can't believe it took me a year to realize she was in danger. How did you find out? I've also been to Stardust Lane, but the villagers there wouldn't say a word about Carol. Either they played dumb, or they simply walked away. How did you figure out something was off from what they said? I bought a cup of hot milk from her neighbor's breakfast joint and sat down to listen to their chit-chat. Clark was in dumb silence. Just like that? And she managed to pick up hints from that? They're all from the same town. You, a stranger, suddenly asking about Carol would have made them wary, and they would hide the truth. But if they're gossiping among themselves, it's a different story. Clark laughed at himself. I even went to her house, asking her parents abruptly. At that time, he was almost going insane, unable to find Carol anywhere. He had to swallow his pride and ask the villagers to visit her parents again and again. Her parents kept saying they couldn't reach their daughter either, and Clark thought they were lying. He thought Carol had fallen for someone else, that her parents didn't want him to bother her anymore, so they lied to him. Looking back now, her parents probably didn't know anything, but I can't be sure. We'll have to wait for the investigation results. What has she been through this past year? Clark murmured to himself. Why are those people calling her a traitor? What kind of situation did she get involved in? Is she safe now? Clark, don't worry too much, Arabella softly consoled. Those people are also trying to find Carol. That means she hasn't shown up yet, and she must be hiding somewhere. Where could she be hiding? The thought of Carol possibly spending this past year in extreme danger and fear made Clark heartache. It was all due to his negligence. He believed Carol when she said she liked someone else. While Carol told you she was in love with someone else, she also told her adoptive parents she found her biological ones and then disappeared from your lives completely. I suspect neither of these things are true. She might have had a reason she couldn't stay, or she could have been taken by some other force. Upon hearing this, Clark didn't know whether to feel relieved or worried. The relief came from the possibility that Carol didn't leave him because she fell for someone else. The worry was because Carol was nowhere to be found. She might have gotten involved in something dangerous and couldn't get out safely yet. Just then, Jack came out from the side building, followed by a few of his men. They were all wet and covered in blood, showing they had been working hard. "Boss, those hard-nosed guys won't spill a thing. They're barely hanging on. If we keep going, they'll kick the bucket," Jack reported to Arabella. "I gave each of them one of those life-sustaining injections you developed. Once they wake up tomorrow, I'll resume the interrogation." "All right," Arabella instructed, "take Clark inside to rest for a bit. Have someone pour some tea and bring some food. I need to check on my lab." Arabella took out 2 small transparent bags from her bag, each containing a cotton swab which seemed to have something on it. Clark asked with confusion, "What are these?" Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.